guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sabrina and today I have another story time for y'all. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be back. I missed y'all so much. Y'all have no idea. Like, I was thinking about YouTube all semester long and just how I wanted to film something for y'all. So as a lot of you know, I just finished my first semester of law school and it was really intense. It was a lot of hard work and it took a lot of my time. I did a poll before doing this video to see what you guys wanted to see for my first video back. Story time, picking up where we left off, was the #1 choice. In second place was a law school update, like a life update. So that video is coming. I'll give you guys more details about what I've been up to. On that note, I don't have a close friends list on Instagram. You know how you can set a close friends list so that you can story and only people on that list or in that group can see that story. So I've been kind of thinking about what kind of close friends group to make, you know? Do I want to do law school friends, or and I think you can do multiple, but anyway, my idea for my first close friends group that I want to do is I want it to be my ASMR subs, people who care about my videos and my YouTube channel and might have something to say or might want to hear more frequent updates. A lot of my followers are from the Steelers community because I'm really big into football. Another majority of my followers are people I know or people I know through other people locally, and I'd say a smaller section of my followers are from YouTube. So I really want to be able to speak to y'all directly, and a bunch of you do. Many of you who do follow me on Instagram send me DMs and I do my best to respond to everyone. I do need to go through my message requests, so if you're a new follower or DMing me for the first time, I wasn't the best about checking my message requests this semester, but I am gonna take the time to check them. What gave me this idea is all semester I was fairly active on Instagram. It's easier to keep up with Instagram. You only have to spend a couple minutes here and there. I story a lot on Instagram, pretty much every day I've got a story. I was just feeling really bad about not being able to post on YouTube as much, and I know YouTube has stories and stuff like that, but I don't know about y'all, I don't check those as much, so I kind of use Instagram for that. If I had more of my subs on Instagram, then I would be able to at least kind of keep in touch with y'all if, say, next semester I'm also unable to film for a couple of months. I'm hopeful that next semester will be a little easier than this semester, but I really don't know. Law school is notorious for the first year being the hardest, so I'm not sure what next semester will look like. If for whatever reason I'm unable to film or unable to edit, then I would love to be able to interact with y'all on a more regular basis. Follow me on Instagram, send me a DM telling me that you're coming from YouTube and you want to be on my close friends list. I'll add you guys to that list and I'll be sure to story for y'all as regularly as possible. I was also thinking for my close friends stories, I can do polls and ask me a question and those kinds of things to give y'all more say on my videos. Y'all can tell me if my next video should be whisper soft spoken. Y'all can help me choose between stories if I'm not sure which story to do. I think it'll be really fun. Okay, so let's get into the story. I know y'all have been waiting a long time for this. This story is about the time that my boss asked me for a threesome. So a lot of you know I used to work at Old Navy when I was in high school and a little bit in college. I started working there when I was 16 and I think I stopped when I was 19. So by the time I turned 18, I'd been working at Old Navy for a few years and I interviewed for a management position. It was lowest level you could be, but I was going to be the women's merchandiser. So I got the promotion as a women's merchandiser. What that entailed was overseeing the shipment process. There were 2 merchandisers at the time. I don't know if things have changed, but there was a women's merchandiser and a men's merchandiser, and the men's merchandiser was in charge of merchandising men's, kids, and baby, and then the women's merchandiser was in charge of women's. But the women's department was more than 50% of the store, so the women's merchandiser had more responsibility than the men's merchandiser, and I don't know how it was structured, but the women's merchandiser, at least at my store, I kind of oversaw also the men's and baby department. So the men's merchandiser, like, I helped him out with a lot of stuff anytime he had questions or wasn't sure like how to handle something. He came to me and I helped him. As I said before, I was also in charge of the shipment process. So we had a whole shipment team that would come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The shipment team would come in from 6:30 to whatever time, depending on how many items we got in during that shipment. And the managers, myself and the men's merchandiser, we would come in at 6 every Tuesday and Thursday. So my direct supervisor was the assistant store manager. Basically, there was like the merchandisers, the pricing specialist was a little above us, and then above pricing, there was the operations and customer service managers. Above them was the assistant store manager or ASM, and then above them was like the store manager. So I did fall lower in the chain of command, but my direct supervisor in terms of shipment and merchandising was the assistant store manager. So when I first started as the women's merchandiser, we had a different assistant store manager, but he quickly got promoted to store manager of another store. And we got a new assistant store manager who I believe was like also being promoted from another store. We'll call her Jamie. She was super pretty, really cool. She was funny, a dry sense of humor, like she would pick on you, but she was cool. But I quickly found out, like, don't cross her when she's supervising because she could be like super mean. Probably the meanest manager I had working at Old Navy, but again, she was cool. It was fine. And funny thing about that, like, I thought she was like pretty mean, like as far as managers go, and she wound up having to tell me that somebody, I don't know who, had complained to her that I was too mean, which I thought was pretty crazy because I really wasn't mean. But when I was in charge of the shipment process, so there was like a plan. We had to take in the clothes or whatever else came in, and then we had to put them out on the floor. And there were certain rules, like you couldn't, overstuff like a rack, like you needed it to be shoppable. And then you had to make sure each size was represented on the floor. And if there were extras, this was like the old Navy. This was like 10 years ago. So since then they've switched to like P1 stores and they look very different now. But back then, like if there were extras, you could keep it above the racks. There was like curtains, and so you could hang, like, it was called upstock, or if there was no room in upstock, then you could keep it on racks in the back, and that was called backstock. So a lot of times, like, I had already told everyone where everything went, or I had it marked or represented with like a piece of clothing, like, okay, this goes here. And they know, if the front is full, if the floor is full, check upstock. If there's room in upstock, or if, like, say there's already some of that item in upstock, then you want to put your extras in upstock with the rest of those items, and you want to keep them sized. And that's that. If there's no room in upstock, if you've checked that whole shop and you know that there's no room in upstock, then you want to take your extra clothes and bring them to the back and put them on the rack, and they're going to stay in backstock. I mean, everybody knew this. So part of my job as a manager was to make my team more efficient and a better shipment team. We had like goals each day. So however many units we got in dictated how long each shift was. So I would schedule my team for however many hours based on how many units we received that shipment. The goal was called UPH, or units per hour. So there were like a certain number of units per hour we had to meet each day. Well, my job was to make sure that this process went as quickly and efficiently as possible. And that entailed like developing my team members. Like, I wanted them to be able to like make decisions if I wasn't out there on the floor with them. I just wanted them to like feel comfortable and confident and know what to do. So a lot of times people would come up to me and say like, hey, where does this go? And I would say, well, did you find it on the floor? And then they'd say, yeah, but there's no more room, it's full, whatever. And I would say, well, what do you think you should do with it? And I wasn't like being an asshole. I was like challenging them a little bit, like, okay, well, what do you think you should do? And normally that would get them thinking, and they would say, oh, well, I didn't check upstock, or I checked upstock and it's full, so I'm just making sure I can keep it back here. And that's the way the conversation would go. And I would be like, okay, cool, keep it back here, or check upstock if they hadn't checked yet. And so I kind of did that with everyone, and I had a really good team because of it, I think. Some people were better than others, but I guess someone didn't like that or didn't respond well to that. So they complained about me to Jamie, and Jamie had to let me know that somebody thought I was too mean, which I just thought that was so crazy because Jamie was pretty mean. It's kind of irrelevant, but back to Jamie. Something that I didn't mention is that she was engaged, and we can call her fiance Carson. Jamie made no effort to hide the fact that Carson was like a jealous, controlling fiance. Like, they had been together for years. He was just like, I don't know, insecure, I guess. Like, he went through her phone and like didn't like any of her friends. She couldn't have any social media. Like, it was really weird because she was so like headstrong. I didn't really see her being submissive like that, but that is actually a really common story when it comes to controlling relationships. A lot of times, guys like Carson like girls because they're independent or headstrong or whatever, but then get into a relationship with them and then end up feeling threatened by that, and so they get really controlling. Anyway, like, other managers would say like, what? Why is Carson so jealous or whatever? And what Jamie would say is, he's jealous because I'm bi. So like, Jamie liked guys and girls, and she said that Carson would get double the amount of jealous because he had to worry about guys and he had to worry about girls. And so that kind of explained why he didn't like any of her friends. I guess he didn't trust her, or maybe he just felt insecure because she was pretty. I don't know. During this time, I too was in like a toxic relationship, and I've briefly mentioned it before. I haven't like really gotten into that, but I was in a relationship with someone who was also like very jealous and very controlling. I just want to throw this out there. That is not okay. My relationship was very toxic. Jamie's relationship was very toxic. My advice, if you're in a relationship like that, is run. I honestly don't know where Jamie is today and if she wound up marrying him and if they're still together. I hope that if they are, they're happy and they've worked through things. But my advice is run. If you're in a relationship where you're feeling like somebody's trying to control you, get out. If you're in a relationship where you feel like you have to control somebody, get help. I mean, get some counseling. It's not that big of a deal. I've been in counseling off and on since, a lot of my life. As a kid, a little bit, and as an adult, I've sought it out myself several times just because I want to grow as a person and I want a healthy family. So relationships like this often result in abuse, whether that's verbal, emotional, like mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. There's all kinds of ways that it can go wrong. And if you aren't willing to leave the relationship, then I strongly recommend getting counseling. And if you want more info on that stuff, I'm gonna put some resources in my bio so that you can look more into the issue. My boyfriend at the time went out every single weekend, and not with me. Like, earlier on in the relationship, which this was a little earlier on in the relationship, he would, like, every Friday, every Saturday, go out with his boys, and they'd be, go to the bar, go to the club, whatever. We didn't live together, but we would normally be hanging out, so I didn't want to be home alone, and I made it a point to go out every single weekend. Every single time he went out, I went out for the most part. Jamie had invited me out a few times, and we had hung out like outside of work a few times, but it was usually like a work thing. Like we would go bowling, or we'd have like maybe one of the coworkers would have a Christmas party and we'd go to their house or something like that. But it was always like in a kind of like a work capacity, if that makes sense, every time I had seen her outside of work. So finally one night we agree we're gonna go out. She invited this other girl that we worked with, and we'll call her Kim. Kim had been there since before I started, so she was there the whole time I was there. I think Kim was probably around 10 years older than me, or actually that's not even true. She was not that much older than me. She was probably closer to 5 or 6 years, but you know, when you're like 16, that gap seems so much bigger. Anyway, she knew me well. I'd gone out with her before. We had a phase where we were like working out together. She invited me to her birthday dinners, and I'd met like her mom and her family. Like we were pretty close. Kim was also a manager. I think at the time she was the customer service manager. So Kim picked me up from my apartment to meet up with Jamie. Jamie wanted to go out on St. Mary's Street, which is like a street in San Antonio that it's like closer to downtown, and it's got a bunch of bars on St. Mary's Street that you can kind of like walk to. I had never been to St. Mary's Street though. I think I might have been to like a bar on St. Mary's Street, but I had never like had the St. Mary's Street experience where you like go from place to place. And truth be told, it wasn't really my scene, but Jamie invited us, so we went. So we met up with Jamie at the first bar, and she was there with a few people. So she had like, I don't know, a friend or two, maybe. I honestly don't really remember who they were because I didn't talk to them. Jamie, I want to say, was about 10 years older than me for sure. And her fiance, I think, was her age, maybe a little older. It might have been a couple of his friends that were there. I really don't remember, but Carson was there. And this was my first time meeting Carson. Now, remember, all that I knew about Carson was that he hated everyone. He did not like her friends, like he was mean, and Jamie wouldn't say he was mean, but she would say like he hates all her friends. Now, Kim and Carson had met before. Kim is just like so bubbly, so outgoing. Everybody likes her. Like she's really easy to get along with. They used to like make a thing about it at work, how Kim was the only person, like the only one of Jamie's friends that Carson liked. So I was kind of like, I'm like a kid. I was like 18 at the time. I'm going into this situation. I don't think I knew that Carson was going to be there, but once I found out that he was, I was kind of like on my P's and Q's. Like I didn't want him to dislike me. It was almost like getting the approval of like your friend's parent or something, which it shouldn't have been that way. You know, she was my friend and this was her fiance. Like it shouldn't have been that way, but that's how I saw it at the time. So I was like super nice, and I don't know, in my experience, like my boyfriend at the time didn't like when I got attention or whatever. So I was like trying not to do anything to draw any outside attention to our group or to Jamie specifically. Like I was just minding my own business, talking to my friends, talking to Carson, and that is kind of how the night looked. I mean, we started at this one place, again, not really my scene, kind of an older crowd. We wound up going to a couple of places, but I want to say that the next place that we went to was a little further down St. Mary Street, so like we could have walked, but I feel like this was around Christmas time because it was a little farther and because it was cold. Carson was like, just get in my car and I'll drive y'all to the next place. I don't remember if their friends even went with us to the next place because that's how much I like didn't talk to them. But if they did go, they went in their own car. So me, Kim, Jamie, and Carson all get into Carson's car and we go to the next bar. I don't know if this is true, but my impression based on that night is that the bars on St. Mary's Street, at least at the time, and the ones that we went to, they were all kind of similar. So again, not really my scene. Different music, different crowd, different like overall like vibe in the place. So normally I'm very social. When I would go out, like that was my favorite thing, was to like meet new people and socialize, or run into people that I already knew and socialize. Like I usually went out closer, either closer to where I lived or like the places that I knew like everyone went. So this was just a very different experience, and I've spent all of my time talking to my group. Well, Carson, the one who I knew to be mean, the one that I knew hated all of Jamie's friends, was actually really nice. He was like really nice to me, you know, didn't talk to me all night, but when he did, he was like took an interest and was just like nice and respectful. I mean, he was kind of like Jamie in that he had like a dry sense of humor and would pick on people, but he like saved that for Kim. Like he and Kim had their own like little funny relationship. So it was like overall a pretty good time. It wasn't like the most fun ever, but I didn't mind Carson. Like I didn't think anything bad of him. The fact that he was like talking to me a decent amount and being super nice, seemed in a good mood, it made me think like, okay, this is a good sign. Like he likes me. Like I'm gonna be another one of Jamie's friends that he's okay with. Like he's gonna be cool with me hanging out with Jamie more. So I think at the end of the night, Kim and I both were like ready to go a little earlier than they were, or maybe they were gonna go out to eat or something. I don't remember, but I know that they were like had more of their night to continue, whereas Kim and I were like, ooh, let's go home. I'm pretty sure I was trying to like meet up with my boyfriend at the time. So Carson drove us from whatever bar we were at, back to the original bar so that we could get in Kim's car. It was Carson driving, Jamie in the front seat. I was like behind Carson in the back seat, and Kim was next to me, like behind Jamie. So we go back to the first bar, and Carson parks like right next to Kim's car. Like Kim's car was to the right on the passenger side. Jamie gets out of the car to like give us hugs, and Kim gets out of the car like to the right to get in her car, and I'm like scooching behind her, like gonna get out on this side. So Kim and Jamie were already out of the car, and I'm getting out, and I'm like, thanks for the ride, we'll see you later, whatever. As I'm getting out, like right when I'm about to get out, he like turns around and says, yeah, no problem, it was fun, Jamie will let you know when we get home. And so like I thought that's all he was gonna say, and I was like, okay, yeah, for sure. As I'm saying that, he finishes his sentence, which is, so you can come over and spend the night. I'm already getting out of the car. I had already said like, yeah, for sure, like thanks, whatever. And he drops this bomb on me, like, you can come over and spend the night. Jamie and Carson lived together. Like they had an apartment together, they were engaged, the whole thing. I did not see that coming. I mean, a lot of times what you see in those kinds of relationships that, you know, one person's jealous or controlling, the other person is too. It might be like they have these really tight boundaries, or they bring out the worst in each other, or they're insecure, or they don't trust each other. Like it's usually that kind of thing. So the last thing that I expected was to hear him say, like, I can stay the night with them. Like, I honestly, I was already, I didn't acknowledge that second part of his sentence. I was kind of like agreeing, like, yeah, like I want Jamie to let me know when y'all get home safely. And as I'm agreeing, I'm hearing his proposition. I didn't like turn around and correct myself. Like I didn't know how to respond. Like I just didn't see it coming. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't gonna like turn around and be like, oh no, wait, threesome? No, thank you. Like I wasn't gonna do that. So I just like shut the door. I'm kind of in that position, like, did I really just hear that? You know, like, did that just happen? So that was kind of the end of that. I get in the car with Kim. She brings me home. I didn't mention it to her because Kim was above me and Jamie was above both of us, like at work. So I'm like, I don't, like, what if I'm wrong? Like, you know, I was just like questioning myself, questioning it. And I didn't want to say anything. So I'm meeting up with my boyfriend and I tell him what happened. He knew that I was going out with people from work. I don't think he knew that Carson was going to be there, but I didn't think it would matter. You know, that's Jamie's fiance. Didn't need to worry about him. But he was pretty pissed off. Obviously, I did nothing wrong. But my boyfriend thought that my mistake was not making it abundantly clear that I was not willing to have a threesome. It wasn't like abundantly clear to me that they did want to have a threesome. Like it took me a little while to process all of this. And I didn't even know for sure that he, like, I didn't know for sure if he knew that I even heard that part of his sentence. Like, I just kind of was trying to play it off, pretend it didn't happen, and move on. I was in kind of a weird position because I wasn't quite sure if Jamie knew, like, if that was something that they did as a couple or if he was hitting on me. So, what I did feel weird about is like, oh God, do I tell my boss that her fiance hit on me? Or like, is she gonna hate? Like, how many girls do you know who you tell them that their man hit on you and they respond well to that? Like, especially, I don't know. I just felt like icky about it, but I didn't feel like I did anything wrong. So my ex was really upset, and I don't know, he would get jealous and like he just couldn't handle it well. He wound up basically like making me, essentially he said that I had to text Jamie and I had to tell her what happened. I had to tell her, I don't know, I guess it wasn't like as apparent to me. I was just so young. I didn't know. I don't know. I didn't really know about how that stuff worked. It didn't like, it wasn't super obvious at the time that it was probably something they did as a couple because, you know, I didn't like connect the dots like, okay, she likes girls too. Like, I just didn't go there right away. So my boyfriend at the time was like 4 years older than me, and it clicked for him immediately. He also was very jealous, so he just like had a heightened awareness to these kinds of things, even when it came to other girls. So he kind of knew right away like what was going on and was like, you need to text her and make it very clear. I'm like, God, no, like I'm not gonna do this. Like, she's my boss. I have to see her like tomorrow at work. No, but he was very insistent that I text her. I had to like put it all out there. I mean, I wasn't even like 100% positive what all had gone down, and I was supposed to like put it all out there. I guess I didn't want to be in a situation where, well, I felt like I was at her mercy because she was my boss. Like, you know, had like authority over me, and also like I didn't want him to like, I don't know how crazy this guy is. Like, I didn't want him to retaliate. Like, if say she didn't know and she was mad about it, and then she got mad at him, and then he was mad that he got in trouble and then like took it out on me. I just didn't know what could happen. I also didn't want to be in a position where I'm like, yeah, he, you know, said this to me, and then she's like, girl, don't flatter yourself, like he wasn't hitting on you, or for him to say something like that and then make me look like I'm just trying to be some kind of home wrecker. Like, it was just a really, really bad like spot that I was in. And then I have my boyfriend, you know, basically like forcing me to confront this issue. It was really horrible. And it was also late at night, like middle of the night. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning by this time. So I wound up texting her. I told her what happened. I told her that I didn't appreciate it, that I was in a relationship. I don't do things like that, like whatever, like everything he told me to say. Again, that's inappropriate. Nobody should be making you do anything. I don't care if you're in high school, middle school, in college, an adult. I don't care. I don't care who you are. Your boyfriend or girlfriend should not be controlling your life, your choices, your actions like that. Learn from my mistakes. I wasted a lot of time in a bad relationship just to have to break up, start all over with someone new, and thank God I found my husband. But just don't waste your time. So, like I was saying, this isn't how I would have chosen to handle the situation. Although I didn't quite, it took me a second to like compute everything that had unfolded as I was leaving the car. It was not the first time that a couple had asked me if I'd be interested in having a threesome. This wasn't the way that I handled it then. Like, I wasn't super like offended. Like, I mean, I said no, but the difference was the last time I had been asked, like somebody outright asked me, one of my friends asked me if I would be like down to have a threesome with her and her boyfriend. Again, I said no, but it was different because she was like forthcoming about it. I didn't have to like read between the lines. I wasn't like, did she really just say that? Like, I wasn't having to pretend that it didn't just happen. And also, I don't know, I knew her a lot better. I was comfortable with her. I felt comfortable, you know, if she had asked me in a way that confused me, I would have been comfortable enough to like clarify, like, what do you mean? But she made it very clear. I said no, and that was the end of that. So back to Jamie. I had to like text her all this stuff, and then we were like going back and forth. Like, we had a whole conversation about what had happened that night. I don't exactly remember what all she said, but I know there was like no apology. She wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, it was nothing like that. She wasn't apologizing for him. She was being kind of cryptic. Like, I remember thinking, like, maybe like she's offended. Maybe she d- doesn't handle rejection well. Maybe she doesn't like that I'm talking to her about this stuff when she isn't the one that asked me. Like, maybe she's just drunk. Like, I don't know. I just remember feeling so uncomfortable. And then, of course, like, my boyfriend was like watching me or like reading our conversation. He was involved in the conversation. So I wasn't able to be like, oh my God, this is so awkward. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm having to talk to you about this. Like I was just like, I wasn't being super nice. She wasn't being super nice. It was so weird. And it also wasn't like us. Like, yeah, she could be mean as a manager, but as far as like our relationship, like our friendship went, we were always super nice to each other, like always joking and laughing and just being nice. So it was just weird. Like, it was just weird. That whole conversation just felt weird. So the next day or a couple days later, whenever I saw her at work next, I pulled her aside and I was like, Jamie, I'm like really sorry about the other night. And she was like, why? And I was like, oh, I felt really awkward. I haven't been able to talk to you about it, but I didn't want to send you any of that stuff. Like, I was fine to just move on and not talk about it. But, you know, my boyfriend was there and he was really mad and he made me text you. And I don't know, I was uncomfortable and I'm sorry. And she was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I texted you after I got home that night. She was like, I didn't get any texts. I was like, well, I got texts from you. And she was like, it was probably Carson. I was like, well, did you see, like, can you see if you have the text? She was like, he probably deleted them. And so I got my phone and showed her the whole conversation. She was like, yeah, that wasn't me. I was asleep. I came home and went to sleep. That wasn't me. None of that was me. She didn't even seem like, it was so weird. There was like little to no explanation. She wasn't like, oh my God, like, she wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't apologizing for him. She wasn't. So that's why to this day, I'm not entirely sure whether that was her or not. I want to say it was probably him, and she probably was so embarrassed that she, it was a, if she had no idea that he had propositioned me, that he had texted me, that my ex, like that my boyfriend was getting mad, like if she didn't know any of that, then that would have been a lot to take in that moment. But I just, I don't know. I feel like the way that she even responded to that was like weird. She was kind of weird when it came to Carson, though. Like, he just had this like weird control over her. So, I don't know how much she knew. I don't know if, like, they lived together, and if he's asking me for that, I'm assuming they had discussed it before, but I could be wrong. Like, maybe he just had free reign to choose any girl he wanted, and she went with it, and she really did have no idea. But whatever the case, it was the weirdest situation. And it wasn't even that they asked me. Like, I don't judge, people do their own thing. But it was the fact that she was like in a position of power over me. And then I was like forced to confront her. And then she's got somebody who's asserting power over her. And I've got someone asserting power over me that's not her. It was just like the weirdest, most uncomfortable situation. That is my story about the time that my boss asked me for a threesome. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Has anything like that ever happened to y'all? How did you respond? How would you have responded if you were in my situation? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on post notifications so that you never miss an upload. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm so happy to be back. It feels so good. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you next time. Bye.